Hi, my name is Kristin and this is Kristin Kraves Books. So I've read 8 books since I last did a recent reads video. I've been slumping a little bit. September wasn't my greatest reading month. I had a lot going on, but October I'm so back into the reading mood. These shelves have inspired me to read more. I've been picking up some really amazing books, but I want to wrap up all the things that I read in September and the first 2 books that I've read in October already. And I'm posting this, I think like a week or 2 after I'm filming it. So hopefully you'll see another recent reads video from me very soon, because I hope that I am just a reading machine. So the one that I want to start with is actually an arc, and this doesn't come out until November. So you're going to hear me talk about this a lot from now on because I love this. This is Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse, and Rebecca Roanhorse is a very popular author here on BookTube. She wrote Black Sun and The Trail of Lightning, and I've been curious about her work for a long time. I have Black Sun on Libro FM, and now I am even more excited to get to that because this was fantastic. I think this was a good way to get introduced to her writing because it's so short. This is 196 pages, and just the sheer size of it, it's small. I want to thank Simon & Schuster Canada for sending this to me. It was such a nice surprise and I just adored it. And I'm hoping that Rebecca Roanhorse writes more in this world, because the world that she managed to create in under 200 pages is just so fascinating. It reads almost like a Western there, but there are angels and demons, and we're following these 2 sisters. Celeste is our main character, and you might go into this and think there's a bit of a romance and maybe the romance is in the forefront, but it's not. Don't be let down by that. That's really not the focus of this story. But she does have an ex who happens to be a demon, and he plays a role in the story. And her sister, she's very protective of her sister, and her sister ends up getting arrested and sent to like be tried by the gods. And it's all about Celeste trying to save her sister, learning some truths maybe she's been ignoring, learning more about the politics of this world. Everybody is morally gray. Just because somebody's a god doesn't mean they're a good person. Just because somebody's a demon doesn't mean they're all bad. It just, everybody is very much gray. It's not all black and white, but the world in here is interesting. It's a mining community. There's magic. It's fantasy. There's a lot of layers to this story, and I was really impressed with it. Celeste as the main character I don't think is going to be for everybody. But again, she's morally gray. She makes some decisions that are questionable, but it's all about what you would do for your family. And she like rejects some of her friends. She's not always the kindest person. And then the decision she makes in the end, even though I know her motivations didn't sit right with me, didn't really feel like her character. So I think the ending of this is going to have conflicted feelings. It's going to be a divisive ending, but I came around to it and it's growing on me. But the world in here, the writing in here, everything, I think this is going to be a hit. So I love Tread of Angels. Look out for that when it comes out in November, and I need to read Black Sun ASAP. 2022 seems to be the year of the cozy fantasy, or at least it is for me, and I think that all started with Legends and Lattes, and I think that's true for a lot of us. That was a huge book this year, deserves all the love. Absolutely adore that book. And of course I am now on the hunt for something similar. I read The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, has that vibe. There's another book on here that I think has that vibe, but one that I found, and this is self-pubbed, is Baking Bad by K.M. Watt. And this is a cozy mystery with dragons, so it has everything you want. It's a cozy fantasy, and it follows like the typical formulaic tropes of a cozy. We have somebody who dies in the beginning. People, our main characters, are blamed for it. There's like a detective that comes around. There's lots of food and charm and friendship and all of that. But then we have these dragons in here, and they are actually characters in the book who have a perspective. They talk, but in this world nobody knows that dragons exist. Not everybody can see them, but our main character can. Talks to them, is always trying to protect them. They're very worried about this person being killed and about detectives being around and maybe spotting them, and really that's what it's about. And it's just so sweet and charming and fun. And the second book in the series is something about You'll Be Sorry or something like that. It's a Christmas one, which makes me so happy. So I'm saving that to read in December, and then I will be continuing on with the rest of the series. I think there's 8 books out now. I think one just came out in September. There's one called Game of Scones. So they have these putty titles that are just fun. And of course, if you can tell by the muffin on here and everything, the food descriptions that you want in a cozy that I always appreciate. You know I love food in my fiction, so I think that this is seriously underrated. You have to pick it up. They're on Kindle Unlimited, I believe. I will correct myself if I'm wrong down below, but I think that they are. But I just had to have a copy because I loved it so much. And the first book is on Scribd. I'm not sure if the other books have audio versions, but I know the first one is on Scribd. And Sarah from the channel Bright and Bookish read this on my recommendation and they adored it, and that made me so happy. I saw on Goodreads that they gave it 5 stars, so I'm thrilled. And yeah, if you like Legends and Lattes, you're in a more of a cozy mood this fall, I highly recommend Baking Bad. This next one has been getting mixed reviews, and I think a lot of that has to do with the marketing and the cover and the title. You expect it to be something that it isn't, and that is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. And this is a straight up contemporary romance. I know you see serial killers in the title, you look at this cover, you're told the description, you think there's going to be like a creepy, spooky factor to it. That's what I thought, but it's not that at all. Our main character, Phoebe, is writing her dissertation in true crime. She's always been fascinated by true crime. She knows all about these different serial killers and all that stuff. So she is more paranoid than the average person would be. And when she moves to, well, she's cleaning out, her father passes away. She has a complicated relationship with her father, but she goes back to her hometown to clean out her father's home and then sell it. And when she's there, she meets the neighbor across the street. They meet in the dark in a kind of a creepy way. She's paranoid about him, but she's like that with everybody. But she quickly learns that he's not a serial killer, so it's no, we don't get that spook factor. You as a reader never think he's a serial killer. It's not that vibe. It's really just a sweet contemporary romance. And Sam, the love interest, is the ultimate cinnamon roll. He is adorable. He is a music teacher at an elementary school, and he wears like sweater vests, and he's so caring about Phoebe and understanding of the walls that she has built up around herself. And I've seen reviewers say that Phoebe is annoying, and I understand that critique, but I think part of it is I related to her. I understand building up walls around you, not wanting to let people in. You get her backstory, her childhood, of why she's so scared to let people in, especially in this town. And she's so focused on education and getting her PhD and everything. She's just been so closed off. And I know that can be frustrating, but she has character development. She opens up. I actually appreciated her quite a bit. But what really made me love this, and this is a personal thing, is that Connor, her brother, is my brother. He is so lovable and clumsy, and you want to get mad at him for things, but you can't because you know he's coming from a good place. That is so my brother. They are both huge gamers. Her brother in here has like a Crash Bandicoot tattoo, and that's what my brother and I played growing up. It's just, I couldn't help but be charmed by that, so that might play a part of this. And I liked all the side characters. So really it's about Phoebe's journey of letting her brother and letting her ex-best friend back in, falling in love, and it takes her a while to get there, but I just thought it was really good. Like, I mean, it's a romance, it's predictable and all that stuff, but if you're looking for something fun, and if you go into it with the right expectations, I think you could really love this. Okay, this is a big one. This is a big statement, but I think I have a new favorite book of the year, something that has surpassed Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. Oh, they're so close. It's hard to choose, but I think there's just something charming about this one that I like a little bit more, and that is Still Life by Sarah Winman. And Sarah Winman wrote Tin Man, which is one of my favorite books of all time, so I should have known that I was gonna love this, but it's so different and much longer than Tin Man. Tin Man is much shorter, but this is historical fiction. Historical fiction is not always my favorite, but I can really love it, and when I love it, I love it. My top 2 books of the year are historical fiction, so I just have to embrace that fact. There's a very specific type, and I'm learning to figure out what that is. So, Still Life is it. And this is set in Tuscany in 1944, so the war is going on. And then we follow these 2 characters, Ulysses and Evelyn, through the decades. I think 40 years. So I like that, and that's what I like about Pachinko as well. It's sweeping. You follow people throughout their entire lives. So we follow Ulysses mostly. It's mostly a Ulysses story and his encounter with Juliet when he was a soldier in Italy during the war. and they're both British in Italy at this time, and they have like this kind of life-changing encounter. It's a very small interaction, but it stays with them both, and they think about each other throughout the decades and want to see each other again. And it's not a love story. He is younger. She, I think at the start of this, is in her 60s, and she might be in her 50s or 60s at the start of this. They just have like a connection, like two souls that were destined to be friends, and I loved that. So we follow Ulysses as he goes back home to Britain. He lives in this pub, and all of the friends that he left there, he had complicated relationships there, but all of the side characters of the people in this pub are so charming and sweet. They all have their own different personalities, and one of them talks to trees, so that is a little bit odd, but something that I actually liked, and that might turn you off a little bit, but it's such a small part of it. I just wanted to mention it, that this character does that, but I love this character so much. And there's a young girl in here. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but Ulysses and a couple of these other characters end up back in Tuscany, and that's where they live, based on another chance encounter that he had when he was a soldier. It's all just so great, and I learned a lot about history at this time. There were some events that took place I had no idea about, so I learned a lot. I was Googling. I love all that stuff, and it's sad, but in such a human way and so charming. I cried my eyes out, but it's not tragic. It's just sad in the way every human life is inevitably going to be sad. You're going to have sad moments, but I was charmed by these characters. If you need plot-driven stories, do not pick this up. This is 100% character-driven. This is all about falling in love with all of these characters and their interactions, and rooting for them to find what they're looking for in their lives, whether that is love or happiness or a career that they are searching for. Is just beautiful. Cried my eyes out. Will reread it. Favorite book of the year. Top 5 book of all time. Sarah Winman, auto-buy author. Loved this so much. And the last physical book that I read was actually for the Book Checkout Book Club. It is a book club that I host with some fellow booktubers, and we will be doing a live show for this in October. I will put the dates down below, so I won't talk about this one too much, but it's Unconquerable Sun by Kate Elliott. And this is my first Kate Elliott, won't be my last. I'm so happy that this is the book that was chosen for our first month of the book club, because I never would have came to this on my own. Kate Elliott I've heard of, but she wasn't really on my radar at all, and now I'm excited about all of her stuff. I like sci-fi, but this is heavier sci-fi than I normally would go for. This is a space opera. It's said to be a gender-swapped Alexander the Great story, but I have to say I am not that familiar with Alexander the Great, and I have read some reviews that have said that they were disappointed by that aspect of it. So I would go into this not expecting it to be like a retelling of Alexander the Great at all, and just go into it for the story itself and let it be its own thing. So we're following Sun, but she's really not the main character. She is like an heir to the throne, and we're following all the politics that happen in there, and it's found family because of all the people that she keeps around her and protect her. I cried. One of my favorite characters of the entire year is in here, Persephone. I just really liked the banter that her and Sun have. The banter that Persephone has with everybody. I loved being in her head. Her perspective is in the first person, which I thought was interesting, and maybe that's why I formed like a deeper connection to her than any of the other characters. But it's really, the beginning of this is a lot of info dumping, a lot of world building, a lot of characters to keep track of. So I started this listening to the audiobook and not reading along at first, and I don't recommend doing that, but I do recommend the audiobook. The narrator is fantastic. She also narrated Daughter of the Moon Goddess, She Who Became the Sun, a ton of other books, The Heart Principle. So it's Natalie somebody. I'll leave a link to her audiobook page down below because she's fantastic, quickly becoming one of my favorite narrators. So I do recommend immersion reading this. And Esme told me and us in the Discord that we don't have to get bogged down by the details in the beginning. You don't have to keep a character map. It all comes together, and she was so right. Eventually I got the hang of it, but it is a bit of a slog. You have to push through, but I thought it was worth it. just for the characters alone. And I have said in the past that action scenes I have a hard time with, and that is true in this. There are a lot of action scenes. I just can't picture where everybody is. It's just too much going on for me. It's just, I'm not that kind of reader where I can pinpoint everything that's going on, but it didn't bother me too much. And it was all worth it. I just liked the characters, the politics, the way this ended. We are going to get an interesting sequel. I went to pre-order the sequel, but I think it was like $40, so I'll have to wait to see what I decide to do with that. But I will be reading the sequel no matter what. We'll see. I'll probably get it from the library, but loved it. I thought this was really good. I think there's a lot to unpack on here. I think we're gonna have a really interesting discussion and live show, so if you have read this, join us and we'll unpack this all, because I think it might get some mixed reviews as well. So I think there's a lot to talk about. I listened to The Kiss Curse by Aaron Sterling on audiobook thanks to Libro FM. I've talked about this in a couple videos now. It is like a witchy romance. It is the second book in a series. The first book is The X-Ax, but I didn't read that, and I don't feel like you need to, because this is like a companion novel, as romance series often are, and it follows the cousin of the girl from the first one and the brother from the guy in the first one and their romance. And it's hate to love, rivals to lovers. They knew each other in college, never got along. Now they have rival like witchcraft stores, but they have to come together to fight a common enemy kind of thing. And it kind of stars hollow with witches, and it's cute, it's steamy. I had a good time, nothing to like write home about, but if you're looking for something light and fun, I think that it is a good one to pick up. Like everybody else, in September I listened to I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And I don't know what else I can say that hasn't been said about this book. It is harrowing, devastating. Jeanette McCurdy is a fantastic author, and I love the way that she told her story, and I recommend listening to this on audiobook because she tells the story herself. And we already knew that Hollywood was horrific and that child actors are treated terribly, but to hear about how her mother was involved in that and the abuse she experienced from her mother was just horrible, and it's worth reading. You have to read it if you can get past all the triggers. I think it's an important memoir to read. I think it'll probably win all of like the Goodreads Choice Awards for memoirs and everything, and it'll deserve it because it is fantastic. And then if you might fall down the rabbit hole like I did of watching all of her interviews. She's such an impressive woman. I was too old for iCarly. Well, you're never too old, but I outgrew it. By the time iCarly came out on Nickelodeon, I wasn't watching Nickelodeon anymore, so I missed all that. So I'm not familiar with Jeanette McCurdy before this, and you don't have to be to appreciate her story and to empathize with her and then to feel a connection with her. So even if you don't know who she is as an actress, she's a human with an important story to tell, and I recommend that memoir. And then the audiobook that I just finished this morning and is so charming, and again, it's a cozy fantasy, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And this is getting a lot of hype right now, and it deserves it. I need a physical copy for my shelves, an all-time favorite, 5 stars. So freaking cute. It is better than The House in the Cerulean Sea, but I can see the comparisons to that because we are following a woman who is a witch who is randomly invited to this home where there are 3 children witches, and this is odd for her because she's always been told that witches cannot be together in the same room because their powers become too strong, and then humans might discover them and they have to protect themselves from humans. Humans cannot know about witchcraft, and witches have been cursed so that they will always become orphans. When a witch is born, their parents always die. So she's very much alone. And this has the found family trope. She is able to go to this home where people know that she is witches and be herself, fall in love. The romance is so sweet. Grumpy sunshine. We do get a steamy scene in here as well. It's just so adorable. And there's like a little bit of a mystery at the end. So I just thought that this was so good. And it's like Mary Poppins meets House in the Cerulean Sea, and it's everything that I wanted and needed it to be. And I will read whatever this author writes next. I just thought this was so well done, exactly what I needed to read in this moment, and I highly recommend it. Deserves all the hype. So those are all the books that I've read recently, some real winners. I don't think I had a single dud in this pile, so that is fantastic. I hope that continues for me because it really keeps me motivated. Let me know what the best book you read recently was. If you've read any of the books I talked about today, let me know your thoughts on them. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for your support. Bye for now.